It smacked, I heard a crack, and I thought, sure, my arm was broke. And that's when we decided, that enough's enough.
And so Sergeant Schaefer and a few other guardsmen kneel and point their weapons at the students.
I could not conceive why they were pointing rifles. These are clearly military weapons. These are unarmed students.
Perhaps the point is made. After 15 minutes, the National Guard retreats. 2,000 students are watching.
I thought that it was over. And at that point, there were cheers, in a sense. I think the students, certainly myself and Allison, felt that there was a small victory there.
They were cheering. They had won. They were sending us back. At that point, we got over the crest of the hill, and there was a single shot.
Joe Lewis is standing 60 feet away.
3 of them, I remember, turned in unison, all turned the same direction and pointed their guns at me.
The guy on my right fired a shot. Well, it was impossible to hear what was going on. Maybe the order would been given, fire warning shots. The guy on my right fired, so I figured, well, if he's firing, they must have given an order. I fired in the air.
The first sound of it, I thought, well, they're firing their blanks. Immediately, I noticed at my feet there were puffs of dirt and cement from the sidewalk I was standing on, flying up into the air. I realized then that these guns had live ammunition.
Although a photograph seems to show Joe Lewis standing still, Sergeant Schaefer believes Lewis is coming at him.
I felt, not knowing, that if this person was going to inflict harm on us or myself, I had to use what abilities I had to stop this person.
I was standing still, giving him the finger. I was 18 and arrogant and foolish.
I fired at him. I assumed that I hit this person because he did drop.
I was shot. I don't remember saying, oh my God, they shot me, but someone near me at the time said that that's what they heard me say.
In 13 seconds, 67 shots are fired, all of them by the National Guard.
As we ran, we ducked behind a car. Actually, I ducked behind the car, and Allison fell behind the car because by then she had been hit in the back with a bullet. And I didn't realize that for several seconds. She was on her back, and she was more or less calling to me that she had been hit. And for a few seconds that doesn't register because she didn't believe that there was live ammunition in those guns, but it was clear that she was shot badly and she was losing consciousness, and I was helpless, holding her in my arms, watching her bleed to death.
On the way to the hospital, Allison KRAUSE dies. She is 19. 3 other students, Jeffrey Miller, Sandra Scheuer, and William Schroeder, are also dead. 9 students are wounded.
Teach your children well, 'cause their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams. The one they picks, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why, 'cause if they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh, and know they love you.
Come back to the spring of 1970. It wasn't all that bad.
Mama, you magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Our World, brought to you by Team Xerox.
Welcome back to our world. In April of 1970, an international team of geologists concludes beyond the shadow of a doubt that the South Pole was once located up here in the Sahara Desert, and presumably in another 500 million years it could be back there again. Technical and social change are moving a whole lot faster. In the spring of 1970, we could ride in the huge new 747, an astonishing airplane that could carry more than 400 passengers, about twice as many as any other jet on the market. And some of those passengers could remember when the Wright brothers first got aviation off the ground. Alvin Toffler, writing about future shock, looked at the frazzled, manic pace of life and predicted that it would only become faster and more frazzled, accelerating all the time, and that as a result, we would become susceptible to a whole catalog of physical and psychological traumas. For some of us, in the spring of 1970, it seemed that future shock was already with us.
Evolution, revolution, done control the sound, so shooting rockets to the moon, kids growing up too soon. Politicians say more taxes will solve everything. And the band played on.
Consider music. All of a sudden, in the spring of 1970, here are the Temptations singing about revolution instead of romance.
We go where the world's headed, nobody knows.
Hey, a little girl, comb your hair, fix your makeup.
So why should that be less confusing than Glenn Campbell singing about little girls when females are demanding rights as women? Especially when neither is quite as shocking as Janis Joplin singing anything at all. Joplin with her bottle of Southern Comfort, her own brand of acid rock, and her outrage.
What it means, what it wants, what it needs, what it wants.
America's Junior Miss for 1970.
Pretty as a picture.
Now this seems to be what parents want from their children. However, this seems to be what they're getting.
You can't always get what you want.
At first, it might seem that future shock is just another way to say generation gap. But if that is the case, why then is Madison Avenue trying to sell skirts to men? Women are supposed to wear longer skirts, but after mini skirts confuse.
It looked like just a long tree trunk or something walking down the street.
Oh, they dig them. I dig them. They're groovy.
Hollywood tried to keep up, to keep the customer satisfied, but does the customer want the glorified war of patent?
Mama, you magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Yes, sir. I guess you better call me.
Or the inglorious war of MASH, a painfully funny treatise on war's insanity.
Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes.
MASH wins the top award at the Cannes Film Festival, but it is barred from being shown at U.S. military installations. Military morality.
The game of life.
And what about the new morality? What is Hollywood to make of this? Is it enough to have Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice smoke marijuana? Maybe not.
Our ears are beginning to get warm.
Orgy! Have an orgy! Orgy!
Maybe they should all hop into bed together, too. And what is Hollywood to make of the new technology? Like computers. Computers keep getting bigger and bigger, and they seem to be in control of everything. Some people worry that computers will take over the world, and that is the subject of the movie, The Forbin Project.
The choice is yours. Obey and live, or disobey and die.
We are pretty impressed with computers in the spring of 1970, although most people have never seen one. They cost millions, do mysterious things, and they are attended by a kind of technical priesthood. But it isn't these computers that will take over the world. It's this one, and it will take over the world by getting smaller. Ted Hoff is the guy who dreamed up the microprocessor. In the spring of 1970, when they began the design of the chip, none of his team thinks of themselves as revolutionaries.
Essentially, we did take the computer out of its its ivory tower, out of its walled-in, glassed-in, air-conditioned cage, and we put it, you might say, everywhere.